Bill Denborough, the impetus of the losers' driving force of going to the sewers to kill it once and for all. His primary objective, inspired by the death of his brother, Georgie. You see, Bill is sick on a rainy morning right before the cycle really kicks off for 1958. And as he's recovering from his flu, Georgie asked him to help him with his boat because he wants to go out and play with a paper boat. So Bill tells him to go into the basement and get the perforin, the turtle wax, so that he can wax it properly, so that the boat can float over the water in the streams and the currents of the sewers. Not in the sewers, but the little currents that lead to the sewers. So Bill is waxing it. They're joking. And he tells Georgie, she. You call boats she. Bill, also known as Stuttering Bill, because if you hadn't noticed yet, he stutters a lot. So, his stuttering, they tell us, started after a car accident when he was younger. But it's also psychological, because Richie notices during the summer he doesn't know that he doesn't always. And he doesn't tell Bill what he noticed. But what Richie noticed is that Bill doesn't really always stutter. And he notices that the times where Bill doesn't actually stutter is when Bill is impersonating someone else. Whenever Bill, you know how Richie uses his voices? Whenever Bill uses a voice like Richie does, he never stutters. Now, the stutter is something that he struggles with his entire childhood. I mean, at least the entire time he is in Derry. He stutters. There's a passage of a poem that he usually recites that he tries to say without stuttering. He thrusts his fist against the post and still insists he sees the ghost. And what does he do the entire summer of 1958? What do all of the Losers Club do the entire summer of 1958? They thrust their fist against the ghost. They thrust their fist against the post and still insist they see the ghost. They all have a individual claim of seeing it and surviving. That's what brings them together. That is what is the trend that keeps them together. So, Bill is the first one to suspect that the killer that killed his brother and the killer that's killing other children now are related, that they're the same person. And whenever him and Bill go to the house on Lloyd Street to investigate Eddie's claim about the leper, and they climb down the coals, the pile of coal into the cellar on Lloyd Street, and they come face to face with, for Richie, the teenage werewolf, and for Bill, Pennywise, having to come to terms that it's not a mortal man that they're facing, but a supernatural adversary. Bill doesn't really care as long as he has an antagonist he can pinpoint for George's death. You don't need to convince him that he still has to fight this supernatural. He doesn't care. He wants to. mortal or supernatural, he's finally found the one that killed Georgie. You see, for the longest time, Bill blamed himself. And for the longest time, he felt as if his parents blamed him as well. I'm not sure if he ever resolves those feelings or if those are just sentiments that he just had to accept as he grew. But Bill is the default leader of the Losers Club. They all unanimously agree, and Richie unofficially is the second in command. I mean, that's what I believe. Or Ben, but I prefer it to be Richie. So, Bill as a child at the house on Lloyd Street with Richie has brought his father's gun. And when he sees Pennywise coming towards them to try to attack them, he tells them, "You killed my brother, I'm gonna kill you, you fucker." And he shoots him. But the clown is unfazed by the bullets, by the gun, and continues to give chase to them. Now Richie, who sees the werewolf, he doesn't see the clown. Bill's seeing the clown, but Richie's seeing the werewolf. Because remember, it is a talus, it's a glamour, it's a shape-shifting, telepathic, empathic creature. So, while they're looking at the same entity, they're seeing two different appearances. So, the werewolf, to Richie, is still coming at them, even though Bill just fucking shot at it. So, Richie only has sneezing powder at his disposal that he brought as a joke. But now it's their last resort. So as they're trying to climb up the coals and the werewolf is trying to drag them down, he takes the sneezing powder and he dashes and he tosses it into the werewolf's face. And it hurts the werewolf. The gun did nothing. The sneezing powder affected it. And so their weapons depleted. Richie has to fall back on the last thing he has, his voices. And so he does his voices, and that hurts the werewolf more. And when they get out, Bill races against the devil down the Bloy Street as the werewolf gives them chase. And when it's over, whenever he stops the bike at the end of the street and they look back, they see pom-poms trailing back to the house on Bloy Street. And that's when we find out that while Richie saw the werewolf, Bill was seeing Pennywise, the clown's Pennywise, the default state of it whenever it is out and about in Derry. You see, Bill and Beverly in the novel are the only ones that have red hair. You see, in the miniseries in the 90s, it's Richie. And he's the only one with red hair. But in the book, it's Bill and Beverly that have the red hair. I'm not sure what the symbolic significance of them both having red hair is, but it's a little detail that's there. So Bill confides to Richie, and only to Richie, that he feels like it's his fault that Georgie died. And Richie is the one that consoles him and tells him, "No, all you did was wax the boats. It's not like you gave him a gun, told him to aim it at himself and press the trigger. And that kind of relieves Bill a little bit. It's something that he wasn't getting from anyone else. And Bill takes him to his house to show him the photo album. And as they're going through it, they come across a picture of Derry from a long time ago. And Richie goes, Bill, who the hell is that? And Bill goes, who are you talking about? And Richie goes, Bill, it's us. And Bill looks closer, and sure enough, it is. It's them in the picture of an old picture of Derry. And it begins to move. And Bill, inquisitive, pushes his hand through the film of the picture, and Richie instinctively reacts and pulls Bill's hands back. And where Bill's hand had actually gone into the picture, there are deep, deep cuts. And they put the photo album up. Because Bill was trying to show him a picture of Georgie that had bled, that Bill's parents weren't able to see. But after just seeing what they just saw in the photo album, it doesn't take that much convincing. Richie believes. So, a lot of your time is spent convincing the others that there's nothing else they can do. This is pretty much their moral obligation. Like, they are pretty much the only ones they all know about that have seen it, survived to know about it. And knowing that it is going around killing other children and deciding not to do anything about it, it wouldn't be right. No one else knows what's going on. And the ones that find out die as soon as they find out. I think Bill kind of always subconsciously carried around a guilt because of Georgie's death. He kind of feels like if them getting killed by it was my fault, then every other kid that I know about that gets killed by it, and I haven't done anything to try to stop it, also kind of lays on my conscience too. That's kind of my fault by inaction. And so I think that's kind of an unspoken catalyst of his that keeps him, because a lot of them notice throughout the book that Bill is tired. He's stressed the fuck out. Okay? That's really what it is. He's really stressed out because the onus, this burden of guilt that he has on him about this monster is one that he takes that personal responsibility of. So, Bill is often noted as the most focused. One that has a tenacity to him, as seen during the cataclysmic rock fights, when he goes toe-to-toe with the strongest of Henry's group, Victor. Even Henry stops throwing his rocks to watch Victor and Bill go one-on-one, toe-to-toe, rock-to-rock with each other. Finally, Victor sees the look in Bill's eyes, and that convinces him What are we fighting for? I don't need to fight anymore. And he runs. Finally, Henry leaves. It wasn't the threat of Bill hitting him with more rocks. It was the fierceness, Bill was built different. So I'm gonna do like a two-parter on Bill because Bill, this big Bill, you feel me? He's kind of he's kind of the main advocate for going after it, and he's the one that has to convince. He's the one that has to be the moral. He has to be the support, the strength for the rest of the group when they're weak.